Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Another exciting show, another exciting guest all the way from New York. We have a beautiful young lady who's here to not only launch and talk about the launch of her new podcast, but to tell the viewers the reason why she did it, because it wasn't an easy journey for her. All the way from New York, let's welcome the beautiful Angela Marie, otherwise known as, I can't pronounce her last name, I'll let her do that.
Angela Conigliaro.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andre.
Beautiful young lady, Italian, beautiful story. Before we get into that, tell the viewers a little bit about who you are.
Okay, well, first I just want to say thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on I Am the Beast Network.
Oh, thank you.
So I have been a licensed massage therapist for the first 15 years of my life, along with many fields that I'm not going to get into. But I had a very hard upbringing, and it really wanted me to spread my word and share my wisdom to help heal other people in a different way in this part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I did get certified for public speaking, but I wanted to find a platform where I can get my words out faster.
You mentioned a difficult life. We all hear that to some degree. We all hear that. I have tons of notes over here that I'm gonna go over with you, and they're pretty deep. But before we get into that part, what was it like growing up for you? Where did you grow up? Are you from Brooklyn, New York? Because you have an Italian background. Tell me a little bit about your life.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and I was there for almost my whole life, with the exceptions of a few different states, and now I'm in Staten Island, New York.
Say coffee.
Coffee. Everyone does that to me.
Really? Okay, so go ahead. I'm sorry. I had to throw a joke in there to get you loosened up a little bit. Coffee.
No. So I was a 70s, I was born in the 70s. So I was in that era where we climbed fences and we played, 1, 2, 3 green light and handball and no cell phones, no computer.
Mm-hmm.
I love that part of my childhood. And when I say it was a tough upbringing, I'm not comparing it to anyone else's. I know a lot of people have rough childhoods. But with my story, I felt I had to have a lot of faith, and I had to learn how to transmute that pain. And it really wanted, like, my inner calling felt like I should get out there and help other people with my story and my wisdom, because I know what it's like, and I want other people not to feel so alone.
Without getting too far into your story, because a lot of that is you're saving for your podcast, which is being produced by the iambeast Network. Thank you for bringing that story to us, because the whole idea behind the iambeast Network is to educate and empower and entertain people. You definitely are going to empower a lot of people with your show and with your story. So with that said, what was the first impact of trauma in your life that you was dealing with?
So when I was about 3.5, I actually got typhoid fever, and most people don't even know what that is.
Please say what it is, because I don't even know.
So it's a very serious disease that you can contract through sick cow, drinking milk that's not homogenized or pasteurized, or drinking dirty water. The doctors believe that this definitely happened in Italy. We had just returned to Italy from the States. And out of 5 kids, I was the only one that contracted it.
How old were you when this happened?
It was 2 months before my 4th birthday. So
Okay.
I was 3 years old.
And you remember that to this day?
I remember every detail
Really?
of it. Yes.
So what happened? What else happened after that?
So
how did you get cured for it? Was there a cure for it?
So it turns out, ironically, they came out for a cure for it in 1977, the year I was born.
Wow.
So had I been born 5 years earlier and had it, I would not be here to tell my story today.
and they never figured out how you contracted it. They just assumed it was from another country.
Yeah, chances are it was.
What's it like to have it? I mean, what were you going through? I've never even heard of it.
So before I got sick, I was actually a little chubby, believe it or not. All the pictures of me is me sitting on my dad's lap with sauce all over my face from the spaghetti.
Yeah, spaghetti. Oh my God.
Yeah,
In the bread,
big time. And the bread and the butter and all that.
in the wine. Well, you too young to have wine.
Yeah, no. But yeah, I was definitely chunky. And then all of a sudden, I felt very ill. I started to lose weight drastically, like at a super fast rate. And I had high fever. And they kept bringing me to the doctor. And the doctor just kept saying, it's just a fever.
Mhm.
And then one day, I was sitting at the kitchen table. I was wide awake when this happened. And even though I was young, I just always had this feeling that I was here for bigger things. And
Give me an idea on that before you drift off with that. What does that mean? You always felt like you was here for bigger things. Elaborate on that a little bit. Then go back to what you were saying.
because I had a sense of I didn't want to be here, that an inner knowing that my life was going to be difficult, that a lot of different things were going to happen to me, that
You was going to be put to the test
to
on
the
something.
test. Yes.
Really, at a young age?
Yes. I was very smart.
Okay, keep going with the one thing you was talking about, the illness.
So I was sitting at the table and I remember putting my hands over here and I started talking to Jesus in my head. And I said, I want to come home, Jesus. I don't want to be here. It's not for me. And I then saw the most beautiful white light I've ever seen, the most beautiful meadow. And I didn't expect to get an answer back, but I actually did. And he said, my child, it is not your time. You have much to do. And at that point, I heard my mother screaming, Angelo, Angelo, we need to take her to the hospital. She's dying. And at that point,
Let me catch, now I didn't mean to cut you off. Let's catch the viewers up with what just transpired. You get back from Italy, you wind up with typhoid, which is it like a fever?
yeah, it's a really bad fever,
Okay, so you have a fever.
extremely high.
And how did you know about Jesus at 4 years old?
So if I back up a bit, from a very young age, I recall having these dreams of me flying. And I wasn't a bird, it was me in like spirit form, but I hadn't put two and two together yet.
Mhm.
And I'd wake up and want to go right back to sleep because it was just so peaceful. And although I was raised Catholic, but we didn't go to church all the time.
Mhm.
But I always had a lot of faith for some reason.
Mm.
I knew there was someone higher up there.
Wow. Okay, so now you having visions about flying, but you meet your perception of Jesus, and he tells you it's not your time, but you didn't want to come here. You're telling me you didn't want to be here to begin with. So you're having a debate with the creator to some degree.
Yes, exactly. I was telling him I want to come home. I remember saying that. I didn't feel like where I was home.
And somebody said, no, it ain't happening. Go back and finish your mission.
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
And I know it sounds bizarre and strange, but there were things throughout my life after that transpired that I was like, okay, I'm definitely protected. There is definitely a higher force. And knowing things.
Did you share any of this coming out of the fever with your family?
So I actually did. At some point, the doctors pulled my parents out of the room, and I remember them whispering that they may want to make funeral arrangements. They wasn't sure that they were going to be able to save me. It was complicated. They didn't know what I had right away. It took a lot of tests. So when my mom came in the room, she tried to cover her tears. And I said, don't worry, Mommy, I'm not going to die. Jesus told me.
Mm.
But my mom didn't react. I don't think she believed me at that time.
Where was your dad?
My dad, he was more, he believed it more. You know, he looked stunned. And I even remember my parents saying, okay, well, you're going to be here for a while. Which parent do you want sleeping next to you? Because there was 4 other children at home.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember picking my dad and feeling so guilty about it
Mm-hmm.
because I was a very empathic soul
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't want to hurt my mom's feelings. But it's just that my father's love radiated so much. I felt safe with him.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted him there.
Why do you think you didn't feel safe with your mom, even though you was 4 years old? That's kind of odd because you would think a mother's love is. I'm not saying one is greater than the other, but mothers are the the carekeepers, so to speak. So why did you not feel that closeness to your mom during this time that you're going through it at 4? I know it's a lot to go back and remember. Why do you think that was?
Um, my my mom had different ways of showing her love. She wasn't a very affectionate person. She was moody. Um, I felt like I annoyed her whenever I'd ask her. I don't think it was me. I don't think it was personal. She had a lot. There were 5 of us, but my dad was extremely loving, and I'm a very loving person by nature.
Hmm.
So I just love hanging out with my dad.
So then what happens? Do you eventually come out of this? Do you wait a minute? Let's go back a minute. Your dad understood some to a degree on what you just told him. You met your creator, the creator. He tells you you have more work to do, so to speak. Go back to work. I'll call you later. It's what he winds up saying.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, go back to work. I'll holler at you later. When your mom left, and in the still of the night at 4 years old, and you're in the hospital, do you and your dad have a talk?
I don't recall us having a talk, but I do recall him holding my hand throughout the entire night and at some point even getting on the bed with me and, kissing my forehead and telling me he loves me and that it's going to be okay.
You eventually get home. What happens?
So when I got home, first of all, I came home with a lot of stuff because my family in Italy sent me stuff. My aunt and uncle in Oklahoma sent me stuff. And my brother, who was always very jealous, just gave like that psychopathic energy for real throughout my life. He pretty much broke everything on me. And when I got home, they had to take samples. I was kind of shy. I was very embarrassed when I had to tell my mom that I had to use the bathroom. But the doctors wanted to make sure that I was truly cured because typhoid is a big deal. It was an epidemic back, in the 50s, 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So, highly contagious. So, but luckily, thank God it never came back.
When you say highly contagious, that means when you got home, were you quarantined?
I was quarantined in the hospital, but not at home, no.
So you was almost like probably a Schedule 1. You was contagious, but it wasn't. Nobody could contract it from you.
Correct.
Okay. You mentioned your brother. I'm not trying to give all your juices away because I want people to make sure they tune into your podcast when it launches. So I don't want to give them all your. We don't want to know the whole story. But you mentioned your brother. That you mentioned your brother. You mentioned this psychotic type personality with him destroying your gifts and so forth. What was that relationship like with you and him?
It was very toxic and it was very scary because I was scared of him.
What was the age difference?
About 3 years.
Okay, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. He's 7 years old.
Yes.
Okay.
Um, Basically, whenever something happened, like 2 years later, I got ran over.
You got what?
I got ran over by a car at 6 years old.
Okay, hold that stall on your brother.
Okay.
What happened then?
So basically, I was walking with my sisters, and one of my sisters crossed the street to get away from the other sister. And I just followed suit without looking. And the next thing I knew, I woke up in the ambulance. Saw my mom, and I was like, Mommy, am I going to die this time? Because I didn't see Jesus. Again, my mom didn't react to the Jesus part. She said, No, sweetheart, you're going to be okay. And at that point, I remember I was wearing a Snoopy tank top. It was my favorite tank top. And the EMTs were like, Oh, we got to take it off. They took out the scissor and I started screaming and crying because it was my favorite. And at that point, they had suspicion that, yes, my shoulders were broken.
Were they?
Yeah, they both my shoulders were broken. I had a hairline fracture on my face. I had a fractured nose and a concussion. I blocked out, so that's why the next thing I remembered was waking up in the ambulance.
This happened because you ran across the street because your sisters were arguing or something?
Yeah, and my eldest sister, she could be mean and controlling. She's the older sister. I kind of got it at the time, but yeah, I preferred to be with my middle sister, so I just ran after her.
Hmm.
Didn't think to look.
Let's
I was a kid, so
let's go back to the other kid. Let's recap the brother, this one that you said tormented you. So what was that like and how did you deal with that? Because you're still young yourself. You got a lot of young ages in the house. Was everybody tormented, so to speak?
So I didn't really realize just how emotionally abused I was until my adult years. But I was definitely very aware, very self-aware of how I was being treated differently by all of them. Like I didn't fit in. My sisters were together, my brothers were together. It didn't really leave me anywhere but alone a lot. And I tried to cope by writing poems, singing, dancing. Later on, my brother basically ripped up every poem that I wrote. He'd do things like make fun of me. If I was saving allowance, I had to be creative and find a secret spot, so I found a cut in the carpet. I would hide it. He would steal it. He'd get away with it. It was like, can I curse on here?
Yeah, this is your story.
Same shit, different day. Only it got worse and it didn't stay the same. Sadly, it did get worse.
What do you mean it got worse?
So then there was sexual abuse. And, at first I thought it was in my head. I was little. I want to say I must have been maybe about 7 years old when this started. And I let him do it because I was really scared of him. And I came from, a very Italian background where it wasn't okay to speak your truth. You were told to be seen, not heard, which is not normal. But back then, what was I to do? I felt very alone. Like, who can I tell? No one. So it just kept happening. And I thought eventually it would stop, but it didn't stop for years to come.
How many years?
About 4 years. This went on.
7, 8, 9, 10, 12. You stopped at 12?
Yeah, but in the interim, sadly, there was someone else that came into my family's life, and it happened with a second person.
You know the person?
Yes.
Who was this? Without, you don't have to give the person's name, but how close was it? Was it a friend?
So
Family member?
my sister met someone and got pregnant, and my sister and I had a 5-year gap, and he was 4 years older than her. And when she gave birth, it just so happened that I wound up being this person that loved kids. Kids were very fond of me. I loved to babysit. I loved being an aunt. So I was always willing, ready, and able to babysit for free whenever she needed me. And he would have me go across the street. That's where he lived with his mother when she was at work. And that's when it began.
Him sexually assaulting you?
Yeah. Before that, there were hints of it, but I was naive. I was a kid, so I
How old
didn't.
were you? 12?
No, actually, I was 10,
10.
9, 10 years old. Yes, because
How,
my sister was 14 when this happened, and she was, I believe, 15 when my nephew was born.
so she married. So this guy was what?
19.
19 and was married to your sister.
Yes.
And you didn't tell your sister?
No, I did not tell my sister.
Why?
I thought she'd hate me if I told her, or she wouldn't believe me. And I was afraid that my brother would get involved and, beat me up.
Why would he get involved?
Well, because he was a control freak and he acted like as if he was my father. Like, for instance, if my dad asked me to sweep and I said no, he'd be like, "You don't say no to your father," and he'd beat me with a stick.
Your brother?
Yes,
Did you fight back?
I did. I did. But then times I just let him hit me because there was nowhere to run. My mother would be at work, my father would be at work, and I really didn't know what to do. I still loved my family. That's the real kicker. No matter what I was going through, I still loved them wholeheartedly, and I didn't want to be taken away. I was afraid about going into foster home. But one day I did actually say something to a teacher. I pulled down my pants and I showed them I had a bruise from like here to here. He beat me with a broom.
Who?
My brother.
And what happened?
So basically, the authorities called my parents and they told me to tell them that it wasn't true. And that was the first time child services got involved, and I went along with it. And I lied and said that it wasn't true, even though it was true. There was actually witnesses all from my neighborhood. There was a guy that saw him hitting me, ran across the street and punched him in the face. Then I got in trouble for it. It was my fault. Everything was like my fault.
How did
At
you?
least according to my mom.
How long? How long did this go on? When did it stop? How old were you when it stopped?
So around the age of about 13 was around the time that I told a friend about what happened to me, about being molested by my sister's husband, and the girl's parent called the school.
Mm.
And that transpired into them calling my house, my brother answering the phone, getting beat up again. But long story short, the reason I'm telling you this is because he didn't have the opportunity to hurt me anymore, because after that, my parents' solution was, well, let's take her out of state, because they didn't want me to testify in court.
Oh, because the state took it and filed charges.
Yeah, basically, they were going to take my parents to court if I didn't testify. And it was around that time that my mom had decided, all right, she's going to go through the divorce this year. And her sister lived in Oklahoma, and my father was going to go to Delaware. So we were just all being split apart. One of my sisters had lived with a friend. My other sister already had a baby. She had her own place. And it was me and my brothers left. So my brother didn't have the opportunity to hurt me again because I was going to be living in a different state than him at that point.
Who orchestrated this family diversion to keep from being prosecuted for hurting you? Was it your mom or your dad?
Both. I want to say both.
But now your sister found out that it was her husband that did you like this. Everything, the cat's out the bag now. How was your family proceeding, looking at you now? Because you're going to be a star witness to dysfunctional family.
Well, basically, as if I was lying. Either wasn't talked about or it was perceived as, I'm a liar. Don't say that. A matter of fact, when the authorities got in touch with my mom at a job, after they realized that was my brother on the phone that they were speaking to, not my dad, she called me up. She said, you need to come here. And they were there. And she said, Angela, that's how she'd need me. And she said, tell them it's not true. And I looked at her straight in the eyes and I said, but it is true. So at that point is when they made the decision.
And what was that decision? Did to make everybody separate to avoid prosecution?
Correct, that. And she would be getting divorced. They would be splitting up because, it was there was a lot of other things going on within the households. It was far from functional.
These are a lot of secrets and a lot of things that's been put up on you. When did you decide what age were you able to get away from it?
So, when I went to Oklahoma, well, actually, let me back up. I moved to Delaware with my dad, but that only worked short term because even though I was daddy's girl, there was no one was going to speak about my mom in front of me. So my uncle did, and I went off on him, and he came after me. And after that, I called my sister. You need to come get me because he was going to kill me. I never did apologize.
Why was he going to kill you? Because why?
Because I cursed him out because he was talking very, very bad about my mother in front of me. And my cousin's wife stuck up for me and said, she's not wrong. I always had like a strong sense of what's right and wrong, even at a very young age. A matter of fact, I was the child that would stay up late, stay at the top of the stairs to make sure that he didn't kill her, my father killing my mom. And my sister would try to drag me by my hair to bed.
This sounds crazy, right?
I know. I know it does, but it is the actual truth.
When did you decide to make a change? How old were you and what changes did you do? You said you went to Oklahoma with your dad.
I went to Delaware with my dad to go
Delaware,
over
I'm sorry.
with him and my cousins, and it didn't work out. And then at that point, I had to call up my mom and said, "All right, I'm gonna come. I'm gonna come live with you and Aunt Alice." So I had to wait a week for the plane ticket, and I actually stood with my eldest sister, and apparently I got on her nerves. I was messing around with the Ouija board. You know, kids. You know, you do crazy things, and that
I
pissed her
never
off.
messed around with a Ouija board. Why did you grab a Ouija board?
Because I was always into like the supernatural. I was very curious because I would sense like what I thought was spirits around me, and I had all these dreams that was so real, as if I was astral projecting or as if I was there already. So I was very into that type
Where
of
did you
stuff.
get a Ouija board from?
I believe it was like at a CVS or a Rite Aid at the time. You know, they sold them everywhere.
So you got one. It pissed your sister off. Now what?
And then my other sister actually did stick up for me. There was a time where I did feel loved by her. She actually kicked her ass for it. And she took me in at her friend's house. And I stood there for exactly 1 week until my flight to Oklahoma.
And then what happened when you get to Oklahoma?
And then by that time, I had been in that would have been the fourth school, because I got into Mark Twain School of Gifted and Talented for talent. But because I was struggling to get anything higher than a 70 because I had ADD, which wasn't really diagnosed, I got X to politely leave. That's what they call it. From there, I went to Booty Junior High School. Then I was in Delaware and then Oklahoma. So after I got there, 2 weeks into it, my mom decides she's getting back with my father. And the school over there said, well, if you take her out now, she's going to be left back. And as I said, I was an old soul, like very mature, very aware. And I said, Mommy, I don't want to be left back. I'm going to stay behind. I'm going to live. I made the adult decision to live with my aunt and uncle for the remainder of the year because I was determined, you know, to finish school and catch up and do better and not get left back. So that's what I did.
This was high school.
Correct. No, junior high.
Junior high.
Junior high.
Okay, so how did your life change by making that decision?
Well, I'm proud to say I did pass, and I got my average up to 90, which I didn't even believe that was possible. It was kind of hard living there. They were very strict with me. They had this thing where they thought I was trying to starve myself, but really I wasn't. I never ate breakfast, and I would legit get force fed. I gained a lot of weight when I was there because of it. My aunt had very strict rules. You know, I couldn't wear makeup, you know, and if I got to be honest, I don't know if I should say this, but
Just say it.
Just the truth. They were a little racist. And I was very, very upset with my uncle towards the end of my stay because I had this friend. I don't know if I could legally say her last name, but her name was Melissa. I'll just say her first name. She was my best friend in the whole wide world. And she wanted me to sleep there.
Was she
The
black?
night before, yes. And my uncle said no.
Why?
Because she wasn't white. And I kind of hated him for it. Not hate, maybe that's a strong word, but I was just really, really angry and disgusted. And it was hard for me to put on a poker face when it came to hugging them goodbye when I left to come back to New York because I had resentment.
What made you think they was racist?
It was pretty obvious.
Is anybody else in your family household racist?
No, not that I'm aware of. No.
Okay.
We all, like my sister, Puerto Rican guy, my ex was Puerto Rican, my brother married Colombian. Yeah, we didn't really stay within the Italian,
the norm.
The norm. Yeah, it wasn't a big deal. So it was my norm.
Mm-hmm. With so much going on in your life and so much that you remember as a child, how did you manage to evolve to where you're at now? I mean, ADD. You're successful at what you do as a massage therapist. Now you want to tell your story on a podcast. I mean, how did you manage to escape all this and get your life in order?
So, I met someone, I call him Satan, whatever it is, what it is, my daughter's father, and I got pregnant. I was 22.
You sure? It was 23 when I looked at my notes.
It was right before my 23rd or 24th birthday.
Okay.
It was in the year 2000. Okay. And I became a single mom, and I was determined to be the best mom ever, and I wanted to get my education. get my shit together. But unfortunately, I'm not going to badmouth him. Let's just say that it didn't work out. And I became a single mom real quick because I was not going to put up with that. I grew up around that, but I was smart enough to know that someone needed to like change that. I don't know if you want to call it generational curse. I knew that I didn't deserve the way I was being treated. And it did get quite dangerous. So I became a single mom and I was determined to make it. I worked 2 jobs. I hustled. I went back to school. And then I met someone who happened to be a chiropractor. And he made me realize that my talent was massage. I was really good at it. So,
How did he determine that your talent was massage? What
well,
did you do?
he was a chiropractor. He asked me for a massage one day. And at
He
that point,
asked you for a massage?
yes.
Okay.
And at that point, I was waitressing, I was bartending, I was also a dental assistant, and I started doing some reality TV. But I didn't have an associate or anything at that time. So he convinced me, and I went back to school not only for massage therapy, but also esthetician and cosmetology. So I went to 3 different schools and I started my business. And later on in life, I actually went to a psychiatrist and voila, I actually did have ADD. It was a thing. Actually, I'm sorry. Let me back up. No, it was before I went back to school because I had a problem focusing.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to think like, what's wrong with me? Like why I would struggle to get like a 72, but I didn't feel stupid, but I didn't know why I couldn't remember. So it turns out that yes, ADD is a thing and I got medicated for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, wow, I'm really smart. Like I was acing tests after that. I was, laser focused and I was determined. I had the will to just do well.
Damn, what did they put you on?
I don't know if it was Adderall or Ritalin.
Now you find out you got a superpower. Now what happens?
Yeah. So I'm a perfectionist and I don't like to do things half-assed. So I exceeded at, building a business from ground up. And before what I call the scamdemic, I'm sorry, but I'm real, I pull it like it is. I was doing very, very well. I had the highest reviews on Google.
What's a spamdemic? That's a new word. What's that?
I call it a scamdemic, the whole COVID thing,
Okay. You think it was a scam?
Oh, hell yeah.
Why?
Well, COVID was real, but who put it out there and why couldn't we work? People didn't work and they still got COVID. People masked, they still got COVID. People got vaccinated, they still got COVID. At the end of the day, we still needed to eat. And I just think it was, a ploy to, kill people. Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't have said that on here, but
No, everybody has a right to their own opinion. So you find out you got superpowers. You manage to maneuver through the scamdemic. Now what happens?
So both my parents got really ill, and sadly, my mom passed in 2015 and broke my heart. And then just 3 years later, my dad passed.
Were you able to have closure with both of them, knowing what you've gone through, knowing that what happened to you, one person might have believed, the other person didn't believe, your encounter with the creator and what you consider your journey? I mean, were there ever any closures there?
So, as far as my spiritual gifts goes, at some point, my sister started to get freaked out and she believed me. And she's like, wow, you really are a witch. Because I'd wake up and I would tell her.
She called you a what?
A witch. Because I'd wake up and I would tell her, like, hey, I had this really weird dream. She's like, that's weird. Because so did I. And I would tell her what she dreamt and she'd be like, oh my God. I would know things before they'd happen. But I didn't get to choose what I know, But as far as closure with what I went through with my mom, the closure I got was that my mom and I got a lot of alone time, finally, towards the end of life. And she really got to know me and she really saw me this time. And my mom wasn't the type to compliment so much. So when she did, you knew she meant it. And she gave me the most beautiful compliments. And we had a lot of long talks. And I felt loved.
What was the compliment she gave you
really
that
loved.
changed you, that made you feel that way?
So we were it could have been my sister's engagement party. And at that point, she was already on oxygen. And she was watching me and she said, Angela, I just realized what you should do. And she's like, you're a really good dancer. You should dance. And actually, not that I'm not like this big famous dancer, but I actually got certified in Zumba because they say when you don't know what to do with your life, look at the compliments around you.
Mm-hmm.
And I always had the need to do more. So that was one of the things I did. But the bigger compliment was that she told me she really admired the fact that I had balls, that I would just jump on a plane and I'd go wherever I want to go. I wouldn't wait around for someone else to say, okay, I'll come. I didn't care. I did what I want.
You think maybe your mom was, I know this is hypothetical, but you think maybe that she kind of envied her own child's abilities that because she didn't have those opportunities growing up
Yes,
in her lifestyle, you know what I mean?
absolutely. She actually said just as much towards the end that she really envied that about me, that, my mom had a fear of heights. She didn't travel so much and she couldn't anyway at the end of her life being on the oxygen, but she didn't have that spirit like to go parasailing or jump on jet skis like ever. She wanted to, but she was afraid. She was like the worrier type of personality.
What about your dad? Your rock.
So my dad, he jumped on the plane pretty often. He left us a lot, went to Italy a lot, and we did have a nice house and stuff like that, but unfortunately, he was generous with outside people, not really with his immediate family. So
what do you mean by that?
So like none of us had sweet 16s or paid weddings or anything like that. We all started working at a young age, which is okay. That's normal. It teaches you worth ethics. But yeah, we didn't get anything handed to us, not even if as a reward. We'd get gifts here and there. He'd bring stuff back from Italy, but he left a lot. So I think maybe my mom had some resentment. She got stuck with us, not stuck with us, but it was a lot, or 5 kids, excuse me, and working and then not having the other parent around.
What's your relationship now with your family?
We
You lost your mom and your dad, so you still have
their past.
Your brothers and sisters. What's that like?
So we don't speak at all anymore.
Because are they still holding on to what, the trauma or how they treated you? What's up with that?
So basically, a couple days before my dad passed away, I literally found out that my brother was working with my sister's ex. And I was just heartbroken. Like, how could you do that? And I held in the tears. I found out by chance. It just so happened I was there and his wife heard someone open the garage and I heard his name and I just froze. Like,
how did that shock you? I mean, like what?
Because of the betrayal. Like, how could you be friends and work with someone that did that to your sister? Like, make that make sense. How could you do that? That's like one of the highest forms of betrayal, but it got worse.
How did it get worse?
So the day we were about to, bury my dad, basically, he showed up there and they invited him to the in-between family dinner on the day that I'm burying the man that I love most, that showed me the most love. And I'm already dealing with a broken heart. And the last 2 days of that week were extremely emotional for me because my own sister started a fight with me because of just a joke I had made. My other sister made into something bigger. And my sister literally called me and said, do not come to the hospital because I don't want to say her name, doesn't want you there. So I missed my father's last breath. I let my sister intimidate me. And I hadn't even done anything crazy. So I was dealing with that betrayal and finding out that she was talking badly about me to my cousins on the day that we're about to bury my dad. And now you're going to invite the man that touched me inappropriately? Like,
now, this is her ex-husband too, right?
Correct.
This sounds like a soap opera, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really crazy. And she had the audacity at one point to say, oh, he really complimented me. And I looked at her like, ends? He molested your little sister. He cheated on you with your best friends. He sold, multiple things of your son. He was a drug dealer. So he sold my nephew's. I won't get into all that, but he did a lot of bad things. So to me, that was like I don't know, dumb, like ignorant. Like, how could you forget what he did to you? Like really? That's how you're bragging about that? And I couldn't believe, like, I was so triggered by his appearance. Remember, I hadn't seen him since I was a little girl. All these emotions that were dormant for years. I was raging inside, but I decided to not handle it with exploding. I wasn't going to disrespect, the day of, it was my father's day. So I decided to stay back and sit with my dad's deceased body, and I didn't go. And at that point, my brother's wife said to me, "Really, Angela?" And I looked her straight in the eye and I said, "Really?" Coming from the woman who said she'd break the legs of anyone that ever touched her kids inappropriately, that makes you a hypocrite.
Mm.
And after that, that was it. Because she called the shots, she wore the pants in that relationship, and she hated me after that. Like, how dare I speak up to her? No one can speak up to her. Everybody was scared of her. So
I'm sorry you had to go through all that. You're taking a different stance now. You're creating a podcast to empower others, and not just others that's gone through what you've gone through, but just going through general things in general, things in general, that they have the power and the capabilities to overcome. Tell me a little bit about your podcast and why the need for the podcast. What's the name of it? Give me some insight on what you're getting ready to do.
So it's called Cause and Effect, and the cause being of what the incident was, whatever it was, whether you were beaten, abused emotionally, physically, and the effect, how it affected you, what transpired after that. And I feel like there are a lot of people out there that can relate. As I got older, I started to meet what I call my soul tribe. And I'm meeting more and more souls out there.
What's a soul tribe? You're meeting a lot of people. What's a soul tribe?
So, people that can really I sympathize and identify within you of how you feel about what you went through, like really understands, and had to learn how to transmute that pain. And some of these people needed help with that. And that's what got me thinking, I want to start coaching people. I want to share my wisdom. And not only that, but if I can save even one life out there for these children out there that went through what I went through, like I tried to end my life quite a few times when I was a child. I didn't feel good enough. It gave me low self-esteem. I blamed myself at times. Was it my fault? Was I too sexy? What was it about me? Like, why did this have to happen? Maybe I'm not meant to be here. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe this is why I was abused. So I want to share my wisdom, and I want other people out there, especially children, to know that they're not alone. There are organizations, there are groups, there are people like me out there that can talk to them, be there for them, to make them understand that there's nothing they could have done differently. They did not ask for this life. A lot of times when we go through situations like this in life, we are surrounded by manipulators, narcissistic people, gaslighters, people that make you believe that it was your fault. But how is it really ever your fault? The actions of what other people do.
Sounds like a powerful podcast. I can just sit here. I'm getting chills and everything just listening to you talk. So you're bringing a lot of experience. When is your show going to air?
So I think on the sooner side, I hope, and I'm excited to go forth and do this over and over and talk about many different subjects, along the lines, because I really feel like it's my calling. I have it in my spirit, because I had to hold a lot of faith during this, and what is faith? It's believing in something that we can't actually see. And I thought to myself, well, God only gives his biggest battles to his toughest soldiers. So there must be a reason. And throughout the history of my life, without going far deep into it, I almost died a lot of times after that. And I happened to be at the right place at the right time and saved other people's lives. So I know I am definitely here for a reason. I know I'm supposed to be here, and nobody can tell me different. I know that I am worthy. I know what I bring to the table. And I know that I have enough strength and determination inside me to make a difference in this world and a change out there to other people that suffer.
That sounds like a winner. What are you doing now outside of developing your podcast? What are you doing now?
So I'm proud to say that I just got certified with the Maxwell Leadership.
Congratulations.
So thank you very much. So I'm hoping to get on much wider scale platforms and get my word out there and, my testimonials. And aside from that, I started to actually do some acting.
Okay.
Nothing major yet, some commercials. And I am working on my singing. I got a vocal coach. Because as I told you, I was in a gifted school
Right.
when I was younger, but I didn't have the confidence back then.
So now you do have the confidence.
So now that I know who I am, and I'm not surrounded by gaslighters.
Right.
I said, why not go for it now? It's never too late.
I like the way you said that. And good luck on your show. I know it's going to be great. They can download it on all the podcast apps, and we're definitely proud to be a part of that. iambeast helping you produce that show. It's going to be a great show. You guys look for it coming out this fall. Subscribe, like, and share. Matter of fact, how can the viewers reach out to you and support you and really get ready for your new podcast?
So you can follow the YouTubes. Remember, it's called Cause and Effect. And you can look me up on Instagram, Facebook, Angelina_Coney. And yeah, or I'm on TikTok too, actually.
You better spell your last name, because I can't even pronounce it, let alone trying to spell it.
Just say it in Italian. It's easier. Conigliaro. Is that easier?
Conigliaro.
Conigliaro.
Conigliaro. Beautiful name. Thank you so much for taking time to be on the show. Make sure you guys follow this fall, Cause and Effect, the Angela Marie Conigliaro story. with great guests and a whole lot of other topics. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been, once again, another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show.